Have you ever been in a moment where everything depended on your next decision, but your mind went completely blank? Maybe it was a job interview, a confrontation with someone you care about, or a crisis at work where everyone was looking at you for answers. Your heart was racing, your hands were shaking, and instead of thinking clearly, you froze. Or worse, you lashed out, said something you regret, or made a choice that you knew was wrong the moment you made it. Do you know what happened in that moment? Your nervous system hijacked your brain. And here's what most people don't understand. Trying to stay calm by suppressing your panic, telling yourself to relax, or pretending you're not afraid, doesn't work. In fact, it makes it worse. Because pressure doesn't destroy calm people. Pressure reveals who never built calmness in the first place. There's a 400-year-old philosophy developed by Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's greatest swordsman, who fought over 60 duels to the death and never lost. He didn't survive because he was fearless. He survived because he understood something that modern neuroscience is only now proving. Calmness is not the absence of fear. It's a trained response. It's a skill. Musashi called it Heijoshin, which means mind like still water. But it's not about meditating on a mountain or escaping your problems. It's about training your mind and body to function at the highest level, precisely when everything is collapsing around you. This video will show you how a modern man learned this ancient system, not in a dojo, but in the middle of his own psychological collapse. And by the end, you'll understand the exact method Musashi used to stay calm under pressure, and how you can build it into your own life, starting today. This video is dedicated to everyone who's ever felt powerless in the moment that mattered most. Now, back to the video. Have you ever been the person everyone depends on until the one moment you needed to show up and you just couldn't? Daniel Archer was that person. 34 years old, project manager at a mid-sized tech company in Seattle, the guy who always had the answer. When the servers crashed at midnight, Daniel was calm. When clients changed requirements 3 days before launch, Daniel adapted. His team called him the anchor. His boss trusted him with the impossible deadlines. His wife, Emma, used to joke that he could stay cool in a burning building. But over the last 6 months, something had shifted. The pressure at work had become relentless. Every deadline felt designed to fail. His boss micromanaged every email, every decision, every conversation. His team looked at him with quiet desperation, waiting for him to pull another miracle out of thin air. And Daniel had no miracles left. It all came crashing down on a Tuesday afternoon in a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor. The client presentation. 3 months of work, a deal that could save his team's jobs. Daniel had prepared for weeks. He knew the slides, he knew the pitch. But the moment he stood up and saw their faces, cold, skeptical, arms crossed, something inside him snapped. His chest tightened, his vision narrowed. The words he'd rehearsed 100 times vanished from his mind like smoke. He stammered through the first slide, then the second. His voice sounded distant, like someone else was speaking. He could see the disappointment spreading across the room. His boss's jaw clenched. His team stared at their laptops. And then the lead investor stood up, thanked him politely, and walked out. The room emptied in silence. Daniel stood there alone, staring at the presentation still glowing on the screen, and realized something terrifying. He'd been faking confidence for years. And now, when it mattered most, the mask had finally shattered. The collapse in the conference room wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of something deeper, something Daniel had been ignoring for months. Over the next 2 weeks, he started noticing a pattern. Every time pressure appeared, no matter how small, his body reacted before his mind could catch up. An email from his boss would land in his inbox, and his chest would tighten immediately. His hands would shake. His thoughts would spiral into worst-case scenarios before he even read the message. At home, it got worse. Emma would ask him a simple question. "Did you pick up the groceries?" And he'd snap at her, defensive, irritated over nothing. He knew he was being unreasonable. He could see the hurt in her eyes, but he couldn't stop himself. He started avoiding difficult conversations at work. If a team member needed feedback, Daniel would put it off. If his boss asked for a status update, Daniel would hide behind vague emails instead of talking face to face. The person who used to run toward problems was now running away from them. The worst part came at night. Daniel would wake up at 3 a.m. with his heart pounding, drenched in sweat, replaying every mistake he'd ever made. The failed presentation, the argument with Emma, the email he should have sent differently. His mind wouldn't stop. What Daniel didn't understand yet was the neuroscience behind what was happening to him. His amygdala, the brain's ancient fear center, was in overdrive. Every stressor, real or imagined, was being processed as a threat to his survival. And when the amygdala takes over, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking, clear decision-making, and emotional regulation, shuts down. This is called amygdala hijacking. It's why intelligent, capable, experienced people make terrible decisions under pressure. It's why Daniel, who had solved countless crises before, now froze when it mattered most. But Daniel didn't know any of this yet. He just knew he was losing control, and he was terrified it would cost him everything. Daniel did what most people do when they realize something is broken. He searched for a quick fix. He started with YouTube. Late at night, sitting in his home office while Emma slept, he'd watch videos on breathing exercises. Box breathing, 4-7-8 breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. He'd practice them diligently, sitting at his desk, counting the inhales and exhales. But the moment real pressure hit at work, the moment his heart started racing in a meeting, the breathing techniques felt completely useless. His body wouldn't cooperate, so he turned to books. He ordered a stack of self-help titles with promises on their covers. Master your mind, think your way to success, the power of positive thinking. They all said the same thing in different words. Visualize what you want, think positive thoughts, change your mindset. Daniel tried. He really did. But when he sat down to visualize success, all his mind showed him were the moments he'd failed. Then came the meditation apps. Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer. He'd sit on the floor of his bedroom, eyes closed, trying to focus on his breath. But sitting still only made the anxiety louder. His thoughts would race faster. His chest would tighten more. 10 minutes felt like an hour of torture. Nothing worked. And Daniel didn't understand why. He was doing everything the experts recommended. He was trying so hard. But he was missing something crucial. He was trying to fight his nervous system with willpower. And willpower always loses to biology. One night, after another argument with Emma over something trivial, she looked at him with exhaustion and said something that stopped him cold. "You're not weak, Daniel. You're just trying to build a house without a foundation." She told him about her old professor, Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a retired psychologist who specialized in Eastern philosophy and modern stress response. Not a therapist, not someone who would tell him to think positive, someone who might actually help him understand what was happening. Daniel was skeptical, but he was also desperate. He agreed to meet him. Dr. Tanaka's office was in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of the city, tucked between two older homes. Daniel almost missed it. The room was simple. Wooden floors, worn smooth by years of footsteps, a low table in the center, a single scroll on the wall with Japanese calligraphy Daniel couldn't read. No diplomas, no bookshelves, no clutter. Dr. Tanaka was in his late 60s, silver hair, unhurried movements. He gestured for Daniel to sit, poured tea without asking, and then just listened. Daniel told him everything. The failed presentation, the sleepless nights, the breathing exercises that didn't work, the meditation apps that made things worse. Dr. Tanaka didn't interrupt, didn't take notes, just listened, with a stillness that made Daniel feel like he was being seen for the first time in months. When Daniel finished, Dr. Tanaka asked one question. Do you know the difference between a lake and a puddle? Daniel blinked. What? Dr. Tanaka leaned forward slightly. A puddle is shallow, easily disturbed by every raindrop. A lake is deep. Storms only ripple its surface. He paused, letting the words settle. Your mind right now, Daniel, is a puddle. Every stressor shakes your entire system. But the goal is not to avoid the storms. The goal is to become a lake. Daniel stared at him, unsure what to say. Dr. Tanaka continued. This is called Heijoshin, a concept Miyamoto Musashi built his life around. It means mind like still water. But here's what most people misunderstand. Calmness is not a personality trait you're born with. It's a trained physiological state. And I'm going to teach you how to build it. Dr. Tanaka didn't start with meditation or breathing techniques. He started with biology. Your nervous system has two branches, he said, drawing two simple lines on a piece of paper. The sympathetic branch, which activates fight or flight, and the parasympathetic branch, which activates rest and digest. Daniel nodded, vaguely remembering this from a college psychology class. When you panic, Dr. Tanaka continued, your sympathetic system floods your body with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart races, your muscles tense, your thinking narrows. This system is designed to help you survive immediate physical danger, a predator, a fall, a threat to your life. He looked at Daniel directly. But modern pressure, deadlines, judgment, social conflict doesn't require physical survival. It requires clear thinking. And that's the problem. Your body doesn't know the difference between a bear attack and a client meeting. Daniel felt something click. That's exactly what it felt like his body was preparing him to run from a bear every time his boss sent an email. Dr. Tanaka drew a box on the paper. This is your window of tolerance, the zone where you can think clearly, make decisions, regulate your emotions. When pressure hits, you get pushed outside this window. Too high, you go into hyperarousal, panic. Too low, you shut down completely. He tapped the paper. The key to calmness is not controlling your emotions. It's widening this window so pressure no longer pushes you out. And that takes daily practice, Daniel, not willpower. Miyamoto Musashi, Dr. Tanaka said, understood something most people miss. The mind and body are not separate. They are one system. He stood up and walked to the scroll on the wall, tracing the characters with his finger. Musashi didn't meditate to calm his mind before a duel. He trained his body so rigorously that his nervous system learned to stay regulated under threat. His calmness wasn't spiritual, it was biological. Daniel leaned forward. So what did he do? Dr. Tanaka turned back to him. Every morning for 10 minutes you will do slow, controlled movement. Not exercise, not yoga, just deliberate, mindful motion. Walking, stretching, a basic martial arts form. It doesn't matter what, as long as it's slow and intentional. Daniel frowned. That's it? Just moving slowly? The goal, Dr. Tanaka said, is to teach your nervous system that movement can be slow and safe, not just fast and reactive. Right now, your body only knows two speeds, frozen or frantic. This practice is called down-regulating through embodiment. Daniel felt skeptical. Moving slowly for 10 minutes seemed too simple to fix anything. Dr. Tanaka seemed to read his mind. Musashi never entered a fight cold. He prepared his body so his mind would follow. Trust the process. Daniel nodded, unconvinced but willing. 1 week. I'll try it for 1 week. Good, Dr. Tanaka said. That's all I ask. After 1 week of the morning practice, Daniel noticed something strange. He was at his desk when an email arrived from his boss. Subject line, "We need to talk." The kind of message that would have sent him spiraling days earlier. But this time, something was different. His chest tightened, his breath quickened. The panic started rising. But then, for just a moment, Maybe 2 seconds. There was a gap. A tiny space between the email and his reaction. In that gap, Daniel took a breath. He read the email carefully instead of catastrophizing. It wasn't even bad news, just a scheduling question. He noticed this pattern again the next day, and the day after. The panic still came, but it didn't consume him instantly. There was space now, room to choose. When Daniel mentioned this to Dr. Tanaka, the older man smiled knowingly. "Your window of tolerance is expanding," he said. "Your nervous system is learning that not every stressor is life or death. This is neuroplasticity. Your brain is rewiring itself." Daniel felt a surge of relief. Maybe he'd figured it out. Tried. When it ended, his boss pulled him aside in the hallway. "Daniel, we need to discuss a performance improvement plan." The words hit like a physical blow. That night, Daniel called Dr. Tanaka, voice tight with frustration. "I did everything you taught me. The movement practice, the breathing. I prepared, and I still failed." There was a pause on the other end, then Dr. Tanaka's voice, calm as ever. "Good." Daniel blinked. "Good? Now you're ready to learn what Musashi really meant by Heijoshin. Because it's not about never feeling fear, Daniel. It's about what you do when fear is inevitable." Dr. Tanaka invited Daniel back to his office the next evening. "Musashi's most misunderstood teaching," he began, "is this. He didn't stay calm by avoiding danger. He stayed calm by entering it deliberately, repeatedly, until his nervous system stopped treating it as a threat." Daniel sat quietly, listening. "This is called stress inoculation," Dr. Tanaka continued. "Your morning movement practice was just the beginning. It taught your body that safety exists, but now you must teach your body that pressure is survivable." He leaned forward. "You need to practice being uncomfortable on purpose, not by throwing yourself into chaos, but by creating controlled pressure. Cold showers, timed challenges, difficult conversations you've been avoiding, small doses of deliberate discomfort." Daniel nodded slowly. It made sense, but it felt hard. Dr. Tanaka stood and retrieved a small book from his shelf. "There's a specific practice Musashi used called mokuso, a pre-battle meditation. Samurai would sit in stillness and visualize the fight ahead, not to relax, but to familiarize their nervous system with fear before it happened." He handed Daniel the book. "Every evening, you will practice this. Visualize the high-pressure moments at work, feel the fear in your body, and let it pass through. GHU." Daniel took the book. "When do I start?" "Tonight," Dr. Tanaka said. Over the next month, Daniel committed fully to the practice. Every morning, 10 minutes of slow, deliberate movement. Every evening, mokuso visualization, sitting in stillness while his mind rehearsed the pressure ahead. And during the day, he deliberately sought discomfort. He spoke up in meetings when his instinct was to stay quiet. He had the hard conversation with his boss about expectations. He started every workday with a cold shower, 2 minutes of controlled suffering. Slowly, something shifted. His body stopped treating every stressor as an emergency. His window of tolerance expanded. The panic still came, but it didn't overwhelm him. Then came the real test. A major project failed, critical data lost, the client threatening to walk, the entire team panicking, looking at Daniel for answers. He felt the old fear rising, heart pounding, thoughts racing. But this time, instead of fighting it or collapsing under it, he simply noticed it. He acknowledged it. And then he acted anyway. He calmly gathered the team, broke the problem into steps, assigned tasks, spoke with clarity he didn't know he had. 2 hours later, the crisis was contained. Afterward, his boss pulled him aside. "I don't know what's changed, Daniel, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Daniel nodded, but inside he realized something profound. He didn't stop feeling fear, he just stopped letting it make his decisions. In his final session with Dr. Tanaka, Daniel asked the question he'd been holding since the beginning. What was Musashi's real secret? Dr. Tanaka smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he'd been waiting for this question all along. Musashi understood that calmness is not a feeling, it's a skill built through repetition, not inspiration. His secret was this: train your body daily so your nervous system learns safety. Enter pressure deliberately so fear becomes familiar. And when the real moment comes, trust the system, not your emotions. He pulled out a piece of paper and began writing, his handwriting careful and deliberate. 1. Daily embodiment practice to down-regulate the nervous system. 2. Stress inoculation through controlled exposure to discomfort. 3. Mokuso visualization to pre-familiarize the mind with pressure. 4. When pressure arrives, notice the fear, name it, and act from training, not emotion. He handed the paper to Daniel. This is Heijoshin. This is Musashi's method. And it's not about becoming fearless, Daniel. It's about becoming functional, despite fear. Daniel stared at the paper, feeling the weight of what he'd learned settle into his bones. Thank you, he said quietly. Dr. Tanaka nodded. This isn't the end of your training. It's the beginning of a life built on a foundation that won't collapse when pressure comes. Daniel folded the paper carefully and put it in his pocket. He was ready. 6 months later, Daniel was thriving. Not because his life became easier, the deadlines were still impossible, the pressure still came, but his nervous system had become stronger. He got promoted at work, not through luck, but because when crises emerged, Daniel didn't collapse. He led. His relationship with Emma deepened, not because they stopped arguing, but because Daniel was no longer reactive and defensive. He could listen without his body treating every disagreement as a threat. He still felt pressure, but it no longer controlled him. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Emma looked at him with quiet curiosity. How did you change so much? Daniel smiled. I stopped trying to avoid the stove. Rama. I became the lake. She squeezed his hand, understanding more than the words conveyed. That night, Daniel thought of Musashi. A man who faced death 60 times and stayed calm, not because he was special, not because he was born fearless, but because he trained for it. Day after day, repetition after repetition. Daniel realized something he wished he'd understood years earlier. Calmness is not a gift some people are born with. It's a choice anyone can make. But only if they're willing to do the daily work. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt truly at peace. Not because nothing threatened him, but because he knew he could handle whatever comes. So here's the truth. You will face pressure again. You will feel fear. A presentation that matters. A conversation you've been avoiding. A moment where everyone is looking at you for answers and your mind goes blank. But the question is, will you let that fear control you? Or will you have a system in place that lets you function despite it? Musashi's method is not mystical, it's practical. Train your body daily so your nervous system learns safety. Enter discomfort deliberately so fear becomes familiar. Visualize pressure before it arrives so your mind knows what's coming. And when the moment comes, trust your training, not your emotions. Calmness is not who you are, it's what you build. Day by day, rep by rep, small choices that compound into an unshakable foundation. So ask yourself, what kind of lake do you want to be? If this resonated with you, leave a comment below sharing one moment where you wish you had stayed calm. Just one. And if you want more ancient wisdom applied to modern life, subscribe because we're just getting started. Stay strong, stay steady, and remember, the storm is coming. But you don't have to be the puddle. Have you ever been in a moment where everything depended on your next decision, but your mind went completely blank? Maybe it was a job interview, a confrontation with someone you care about, or a crisis at work where everyone was looking at you for answers. Your heart was racing, your hands were shaking, And instead of thinking clearly, you froze. Or worse, you lashed out, said something you regret, or made a choice that you knew was wrong the moment you made it. Do you know what happened in that moment? Your nervous system hijacked your brain. And here's what most people don't understand. Trying to stay calm by suppressing your panic, telling yourself to relax or pretending you're not afraid, doesn't work. In fact, it makes it worse. Because pressure doesn't destroy calm people. Pressure reveals who never built calmness in the first place. Have you ever been in a moment where everything depended on your next decision, but your mind went completely blank? Maybe it was a job interview, a confrontation with someone you care about, or a crisis at work where everyone was looking at you for answers. Your heart was racing, your hands were shaking, and instead of thinking clearly, you froze. Or worse, you lashed out, said something you regret, or made a choice that you knew was wrong the moment you made it. Do you know what happened in that moment? Your nervous system hijacked your brain. And here's what most people don't understand. Trying to stay calm by suppressing your panic, telling yourself to relax, or pretending you're not afraid, doesn't work. In fact, it makes it worse. Because pressure doesn't destroy calm people. Pressure reveals who never built calmness in the first place. There's a 400-year-old philosophy developed by Miyamoto Musashi, Japan's greatest swordsman, who fought over 60 duels to the death and never lost. He didn't survive because he was fearless. He survived because he understood something that modern neuroscience is only now proving. Calmness is not the absence of fear. It's a trained response. It's a skill. Musashi called it Heijoshin, which means mind like still water. But it's not about meditating on a mountain or escaping your problems. It's about training your mind and body to function at the highest level precisely when everything is collapsing around you. This video will show you how a modern man learned this ancient system, not in a dojo, but in the middle of his own psychological collapse. And by the end, you'll understand the exact method Musashi used to stay calm under pressure and how you can build it into your own life, starting today. This video is dedicated to everyone who's ever felt powerless in the moment that mattered most. Now, back to the video.